I woke up to the soft light of morning slipping through the curtains and the faint sound of birds singing outside my window. I could hear the distant hum of the city as it slowly stirred to life, and in that quiet moment, I remembered the woman who had knocked on my door yesterday, begging me to fix a dress, her hands trembling as she handed it to me, her eyes full of hope and something I could not name. I had promised her I would do my best and carefully laid the dress on my sewing table, the fabric delicate and fragile, like the story she carried in her eyes. I ran my fingers along the seams, imagining the life stitched into every thread. And as I began working, I felt a strange connection to her, as if her fears and dreams had crossed into my own world through the simple act of asking for help. Hours passed in a rhythm of needle and thread, each pull a meditation, a silent prayer that I could somehow weave something more than fabric, that I could stitch a little bit of hope into the folds of her dress. And I thought about the lives we live, unseen, the quiet struggles that weigh on people in ways the world will never notice. And I wondered what had brought her to my doorstep, what unseen battles she had faced, what joys she had known, what heartbreak had carved its mark into her smile. And as the morning bled into afternoon, I lost myself in the simple act of creation, feeling both the weight and the beauty of human fragility. The next morning, my son came running into the kitchen, holding a newspaper, his small hands gripping it tightly, his eyes wide with excitement, and something I could not yet understand in the way he looked at me. I took the paper from him, my fingers brushing his, and as I unfolded it, my eyes fell on a photograph that made my heart stop. There she was, the woman from yesterday, her face lit with a smile that reached deep into her eyes, and below it, the headline told a story I could hardly believe. She had been recognized for something extraordinary, an act of kindness, a project that had touched countless lives, a voice that had been heard far beyond what I could imagine. And I felt a wave of emotion so intense that I could not speak. I looked at my son and he said, "You helped her, Mom. You fixed her dress." And I realized in that moment how small acts of care can ripple through the world in ways we never see, how a single gesture can change the course of a life. I remembered the way she had held the dress, how gently she had treated it as if it carried a piece of her soul, and I understood that what I had done was more than sewing. It was acknowledgement, it was connection, it was a thread joining two lives for a brief moment in time. And as I sat there, the sun spilling warmth across the table, I thought about all the quiet acts of love and attention that go unnoticed, the kindnesses we give and receive in silence, and how each one has the power to shift the world in ways we can never measure. I felt gratitude swelling in my chest for being a part of one such moment, and for the reminder that our small actions carry weight beyond what we see. The memory of her eyes stayed with me, the tremble in her hands, the soft whisper of her request. I imagined her wearing the dress, walking into a room with confidence, radiating from her as if the fabric had absorbed not just my stitches, but my care and my hope for her. And I felt a surge of warmth knowing that something I had done could bring joy to another human being. And in that joy, I found something unexpected, a reflection of my own heart, a glimpse of the world as it could be if we only noticed each other, if we only took the time to stitch kindness into the lives we touch. As the day wore on, I could not stop thinking about her, the woman who had come to me with nothing but a dress and the plea for help. I wondered where she was now, what she was doing, if the dress I had stitched with so much care would bring her the confidence she needed to face the world. I imagined her standing in front of a mirror, feeling the fabric against her skin. And for a brief moment, I pictured all her worries melting away, replaced by a quiet strength that came from being seen and acknowledged. And I realized that in that small exchange, we had both been transformed, that the act of giving had looped back to me, filling a hollow space inside that I had not even known existed. I went about my day, moving through the motions, but my mind kept drifting back to her, to the ripples she had created by simply asking for help. And then the memory of my son handing me the newspaper, the look of awe on his face, the pride that seemed too big for such small shoulders, hit me again, and I felt tears rising unbidden. I sat down with the paper once more and read her story in detail. How she had overcome obstacles that would have broken others. How she had taken the pain of her past and transformed it into action that touched lives. I felt a swell of admiration and something more, the quiet realization that each of us holds the power to change the world in ways that start small, in ways that begin with a simple act of kindness and attention. I thought about the people in my own life, the faces that pass me by, the moments I overlook, the gestures I fail to make. And I vowed silently to notice more, to give more, to allow the threads of human connection to weave their way into every corner of my life. And in that vow, I felt a new sense of purpose, a drive to live with intention, to be part of something larger than myself. And as evening fell and the city lights began to twinkle like distant stars, I imagined her walking through a crowd, her head held high, the dress I had fixed flowing around her, and I felt the strange beauty of being connected to someone I barely knew, yet somehow understood, a shared humanity that cannot be broken. That night, as I lay in bed, I remembered her eyes once again, the mixture of hope and fear, the vulnerability she had shown. And I understood that moments like these are rare, precious gifts that remind us of who we are and what we are capable of. In the quiet of the night, I felt the weight of gratitude pressing gently against my chest, and I whispered a silent thank you to the universe for allowing me to witness even a small part of her journey, and for showing me that life is stitched together from these invisible threads that carry love, courage, and the power to transform. The following days passed in a strange blur of ordinary routines and extraordinary thoughts. Every time I caught a glimpse of the dress, folded neatly on the table, I remembered her face, the way her eyes had shone with gratitude, and I felt a tug in my chest that would not let go. I began noticing little things around me, the way the sunlight hit the walls in the morning, the way my son laughed while chasing his small shadow across the kitchen floor, the way the wind whispered through the trees outside my window. And in all these quiet observations, I felt her presence, somehow, a reminder that life is composed of moments, both fragile and magnificent, and that each moment has the potential to leave a mark. I decided to visit her, to see the woman whose life had unexpectedly intertwined with mine. I imagined what I would say, how I could explain that the simple act of sewing a dress had connected us in ways we could never anticipate. And when I arrived at her doorstep, she opened the door, and the warmth in her smile made me feel as if I had known her forever. She welcomed me in, and as we talked, I listened to her story, unfolding like petals of a flower. Her struggles, her victories, the journey she had walked to reach this moment. And I realized that her strength was something I had only glimpsed in passing before. Now I could see the depth of her courage, the resilience that had carried her through hardship, and the grace that made her so magnetic to everyone around her. We spent hours talking about dreams and fears, about the people who had shaped us, the moments that had broken us and rebuilt us. And I shared with her the small details of my life, the ordinary moments that had suddenly seemed extraordinary through the lens of our connection. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a sense of serenity, a quiet joy that comes from knowing that human connection can transcend circumstance, that the simplest gestures can ripple into unimaginable outcomes, and that life has a way of rewarding kindness in ways that cannot always be predicted. That evening, as I walked back home, I thought about my son holding the newspaper, the pride in his small face, and I understood that the world is stitched together with invisible threads, acts of care and courage that link us in ways we may never fully comprehend. I felt a deep gratitude for having been part of one such thread, and a renewed determination to continue noticing the small acts of life, to continue weaving kindness into the days ahead. And as I lay down to sleep, I imagined her wearing the dress, standing tall, confident, radiant with the knowledge that she was seen and celebrated. And in that image, I felt a warmth spread through me, a quiet certainty that sometimes the smallest acts can create the most profound changes, and that in giving to others, we find ourselves transformed. The days turned into weeks, and every time I thought about her, I felt a strange pull in my heart, a mixture of curiosity and awe. I began seeing the world differently, noticing the small acts of courage and kindness that often go unnoticed in the rush of daily life. And I realized that the woman who had come to me with the dress had given me more than I had given her. She had given me perspective, a reminder that our lives are intertwined in ways we cannot always see, and that a single act of care can spark ripples far beyond our imagination. One afternoon, I received a call from her. She wanted to meet and share something. I agreed without hesitation, and when we sat together in a small cafe, she handed me a letter she had written for me, her words flowing with gratitude and emotion, telling me how much the simple act of fixing her dress had changed her confidence, how it had reminded her of her own strength, how it had inspired her to pursue dreams she had almost abandoned. And I felt my eyes fill with tears, the letter heavy with meaning, yet light with the beauty of human connection. It was a testament to how fragile and strong we are, how the smallest gesture can open doors we never knew existed. And I understood then that life is composed of these invisible threads, moments that bind us in ways that transcend time and space. I thought about my son in the newspaper, the excitement in his eyes, the pride in his small voice, and I realized that he too had witnessed the power of small acts of kindness, how we give without knowing the full impact, and yet somehow the universe finds a way to reflect it back to us in ways that leave us speechless and humbled. And as the sun set that evening, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I felt a sense of completeness, a quiet understanding that we are all part of a larger story. Stories intersecting at unexpected moments that change the course of lives. And sometimes, all it takes is a thread of care to weave a connection that will last forever. Weeks later, I watched her being honored in a small ceremony. A crowd of people gathered to celebrate the work she had done, the lives she had touched, the courage she had shown. And I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and joy, knowing that I had played a tiny part in her journey, that the stitches of a dress had somehow woven a bridge between our lives. And I thought about all the invisible threads in my own life, the quiet acts of love, the unnoticed gestures that have carried someone else through a hard day. And I felt gratitude swelling in my chest, a deep understanding that the world is far kinder and more connected than we often realize. And as I walked home that evening, my son ran to me, his laughter bright and pure, and he said, "Mom, you helped her, Mom, you made her stronger." And I held him close, feeling the warmth of life and the profound truth of human connection, that when we give a piece of ourselves to another, even in something small, it returns to us multiplied in ways we can never anticipate. And I looked back at the horizon, the sky now deep indigo, sprinkled with stars, and I whispered a silent promise to continue noticing, to continue giving, to continue weaving threads of care into the tapestry of life, knowing that sometimes the smallest gestures can change the course of a life, and that in helping others, we find the courage to discover ourselves. And as I turned to enter my home, I carried with me the quiet joy of witnessing a life transformed, the beauty of human connection, the power of empathy, and the realization that the world is stitched together by moments both fragile and extraordinary. And I understood that sometimes it takes a single act of kindness, a single thread of care to create ripples that echo forever. And in that understanding, I felt complete, fulfilled, and profoundly moved by the simple yet infinite power of love and human connection. I woke up to the quiet hum of the city and the soft golden light spilling through my window. I could hear my son moving in the next room, his small footsteps like a rhythm of life, reminding me that even in ordinary mornings, there is something extraordinary waiting to be noticed. And as I stretched and reached for the cup of tea, I felt a memory tugging at me, the woman who had come to my door days ago, asking for help with a dress, her eyes wide with hope and a vulnerability that pierced straight through me. I remembered how she had hesitated with her words, how she had whispered, "Please help me," and how in that simple request, a universe of trust had unfolded between us. I carried the memory to the sewing table where the dress lay folded neatly, its fabric soft and fragile. I ran my fingers along the seams, remembering the moments I had spent carefully stitching each thread together, imagining that in every pull of the needle, I was weaving more than fabric. I was weaving courage and dignity into someone else's life. And as I worked, I thought about how small gestures can hold unimaginable power, how a quiet act of care can ripple across lives. And sometimes we do not even realize the impact until the world reflects it back in ways that leave us breathless and humbled. Later that morning, my son ran into the kitchen holding a newspaper, his eyes shining with excitement. I took it from him, and there she was, her face radiant, her smile capturing something pure and triumphant. And I read the headline and felt my chest swell with a strange mixture of pride and disbelief. She had been recognized for her courage, for the work she had done, for the way she had touched countless lives. And in that moment, I realized that the dress I had mended had been more than fabric. It had been a thread linking our stories, a reminder that human connection is often subtle, quiet, and miraculous. I sat with the paper in my hands and thought about the invisible threads that weave through our lives, the moments when our actions touch another soul even when we think they go unnoticed. And I felt a wave of gratitude for being part of one such moment, for having the chance to see the beauty of human resilience reflected back at me through her eyes, through my son's excitement, through the gentle unfolding of the ordinary into something extraordinary. And I understood that life is composed of these threads, moments of care and attention that form the fabric of our shared existence. In the afternoon, I imagined her wearing the dress, walking through the world with a new confidence. The way her shoulders might lift, the way her laughter might sound freer. And I felt an unexpected joy, a quiet elation that comes from knowing you have touched someone's life in a real way. And I thought about my own journey, the small acts of kindness I have received, the moments when someone has stitched courage into my heart without asking for anything in return. And I realized that these exchanges create a circle of care that carries us forward even in the darkest moments. As evening settled and the sky turned a deep amber, I thought about how life is made of fleeting moments, strung together by intention and love. I reflected on my son holding the newspaper and how witnessing joy in another can be as transformative as giving it myself. I felt a warmth spread through me, a reminder that connection is not measured in grandeur, but in the quiet spaces where two lives intersect. A look, a word, a gentle action. And in those moments, the world becomes luminous, fragile, and infinite. Before I went to sleep, I held the dress one last time and felt the weight of its meaning, not as a garment, but as a symbol of hope, resilience, and the unseen beauty of human interaction. I whispered a silent promise to continue noticing, to continue giving, to continue weaving threads of kindness into the days ahead, knowing that in every small act, there was a possibility for change. And in that possibility, I found peace, joy, and the quiet thrill of having touched a life forever, knowing that tomorrow the world will continue in its ordinary ways, and yet somewhere out there, a heart will carry a piece of what we have given, and it will ripple and bloom and grow in ways we cannot foresee. And in that, I felt the miracle of being alive.
If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Every single subscription motivates me to bring you even more exciting and dramatic HOA stories. And don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. I'll see you in the next story, where justice gets even more satisfying.